Hello everyone, and welcome to Wednesdays with Whitney. I'm Whitney, and today I'm speaking with the lovely Kirsten Anderson, who is an advocate for harassment-free workplaces.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, Kirsten and I met a year ago?
Yeah, a year ago.
A year ago? Okay. We met a year ago when she emailed me about headshots. I, at that time, had no idea the impact that you had made in Iowa. And I think actually a lot of this was happening while I was out of state, so I have a small excuse. But upon further Googling of Miss Kirsten, I found out that she is a rock star and had won a suit against, actually you tell us a little bit about this.
The state of Iowa.
Yes.
So we just celebrated a 1-year anniversary. I went to court exactly 1 year ago, yesterday. And I won my lawsuit. A jury of our peers found in my favor that I was wrongfully terminated, that I had been sexually harassed at work, and I had been retaliated against. And the state of Iowa was at fault. At the time, I was communications director for Iowa Senate Republicans. I had been there for 5 years.
Which is a very long time to be at a workplace.
It is.
I think it is now with the way that we transition jobs so frequently. Like, you'd been there a while.
I had been there a while. I had done my job well, got good reviews, but I had been harassed almost the entire time I was there, and I knew it was wrong. Filed suit after I was fired, and then a year ago I won my suit.
And it was a big win. It was a big win.
It was
not just for you, but for everybody. So one of the things that we talked a lot about in our conversations is leading up to your dismissal after a complaint, just that consistent, repetitive, verbal behavior happening in the workplace. Can you talk a little bit about that?
And I liken it to, it's an abusive relationship. It's very similar to that. You go to work, you are beat down every day. Yeah. My self-worth had become so low, it had diminished so very much that I had to psych myself up to go to work every day. I was crying every day. I was on antidepressants, seeing a counselor.
Were these things that you were doing before this job?
No.
No,
not at all.
And I think something that you had said was like, I'm a strong woman. I identified as a strong, powerful woman. And so struggling through that.
It was a lot to handle, and honestly, I didn't want people to know. I felt shame and guilt because, and I had told you, I'm a strong woman. I can handle harassment, and I don't want people to know that I can't handle it. And so I didn't tell anybody for a long time.
Well, and I think that's how I would process that too. And that's how, if something kind of, sometimes when I feel like, ooh, that was a little weird, I'll just swallow it. And I'll be like, you know what, I can take this, I can handle it. And I've been very fortunate in my life that I haven't had that in the workplace or in a relationship, but those one-time comments. But even if, I talk to my running friends a lot. This actually gets talked about a ton in the running community, how they're out running, my female friends are out running, and they're constantly getting called.
Catcalled.
And I'm just like, first of all, what good does that do anybody? Like, truly, like, what are we working towards there?
Right.
And then, but they just get used to it. And I had a friend get like shoved in an elevator by a mentally unstable person. And this was very recently, I was like taken aback by this experience. And she said, you know what? The strange thing is I'm so desensitized. She's a runner. I'm so desensitized because I am called at daily, multiple times a day. I was like, okay, we need to chat about this.
These are things that as women that we live with, that we're starting to talk about, that we've kept secret for so long. And we can't do that anymore. We have to bring these issues out of the shadows if we're going to fix things.
Well, and I think we're starting to see these massive allegations happening, these massive allegations that have huge standings and support. I mean, some of the, we hear about Bill Cosby, we hear about Harvey Weinstein, and like, something that you and I talked about is like, okay, you've got that one person that comes forward, and then you hear all these other voices, and you're kind of like, wait, why now? But it's because it's so hard to say anything the first time around. That's why Me Too spread through the country like wildfire.
Right.
You don't want to be the only person.
Well, and nobody wants to be the Debbie Downer at the office, but it is worth it to stand up for yourself, to say no, to draw the line. And quite honestly, it's also easier to go along to get along.
Yeah.
We can't do that anymore. We can't go along to get along. We have to collectively start supporting each other, talking about this issue, and collectively drawing the line.
One, I think, when your paycheck is on the line, that's huge. That's your lifestyle, that's your family. And I think about what most of us would do to make sure that we have a consistent paycheck coming in. And there's a lot of things that we will tolerate in order for that to happen. So when we were, one of the conversations we have were about rebuilding worth, like going through the process of that trial. Was that a rebuilding process for you, going through the trial? Okay, tell me about that.
So you have to understand that when I decided to sue the state of Iowa, I was at a low point, extremely low. I had been verbally abused every day, yelled at, crying every day, the lowest of the low. And it took supportive family and my lawyer building me back up, saying, no, you can't just let it happen to you. What they did to you was wrong. People need to know about it. You are strong enough. We love you. You are valued. You need to show people that what's happening at the Capitol is wrong. And so my trial process was just over 4 years. So it was a long rebuilding process.
Well, and it's every day you have to stand up and say, okay, I'm going to go under fire again today. Like, not only had you worked in an environment where you were under fire and then been terminated because of that, then you have to go through a trial process, which not something I ever want to have to engage in. So
no, and I don't recommend it. I don't.
Hopefully I never have to do
it. So too.
Fortunately, my boss is generally pretty good to me, but she has her days. So, so now, what are you doing about this?
Now, I am on a personal mission to end workplace harassment everywhere in my lifetime. We can do it, and we can do it together. You can do it in your space wherever you work, from the construction site to the hospital to the office. We can all take a stand and do little things that make a really big difference.
Tell us about some of these things, because I have to say, I've kind of lived in a bubble. I've always worked for one or two people. We've had, I have not had some of the experiences that other people have had, but, I have friends that work in corporate America. I have parents. And something that my mom said to me that really impacted me, she was speaking at LEAP, and you also spoke at LEAP so eloquently on this topic. Something I remember my mom saying was, ask your neighbor what they're making. Because, we don't talk about our salaries, right?
No.
But we don't know if we're not getting the same thing as the coworker doing the exact same job if we don't talk about it. And if we don't ask these questions, if we're sitting there thinking, I'm not making enough for my job, and then we find out that the person next to us is making 10 grand more, or what happens if we find out they're making the same thing, if they're having the same experience, and then you two can advocate together. Right. I think about it as the same thing of having those conversations about harassment in the workplace.
You have to, and it starts with a conversation. And now let me be very clear, you must do it discreetly.
Yeah.
You must do it discreetly, because this is, right now, let's face it, it's a sensitive topic. It shouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah.
And it's sensitive to employers, right? Because there's a lot on the line. Absolutely. Typically, it is people in positions of power abusing that power, exercising power and control over another. Yeah. It's not about the sex, it's about power and control. Yeah. So discreetly start a conversation with your coworker. Just say, hey, how are things going with you? I'm noticing that Joe's a little aggressive toward me. Are you getting that vibe from him? He's saying some kind of questionable things. Start with that. Yeah. See what's going on.
And they may confirm that. They they may not, but at least the conversation's out there, and it feels like, okay, it's a conversation, not an accusation.
Right.
Like, maybe we're in this together, maybe we're not, but let's just see.
There's safety in numbers.
Yes.
And collectively, once you know what you're dealing with, you can talk on a deeper level.
Yeah.
Do you file a complaint? Do you collectively go to HR? Do you talk about this with more people at the office? Do you confront Joe?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It will lead to other things.
Something that you did really well that I think helped in your whole trial process is that you had been documenting these things. You've been documenting things that were said, comments that were made, reactions that happened throughout your entire work stay as soon as it started to become a pervasive issue. So you had documentation of this, dates, times, what you were wearing.
That's right.
So, and I mean, the fact that we have to write down what we're wearing whoa. But I thought about this during the election when we were commenting on what Hillary was wearing all the time, and I'm like,
let's face it,
pantsuit, like, we're good, everything's fine.
That's our society, and even if writing down what you're wearing helps jog a memory, then do it.
Yeah. What are the cues? So is that something that you would advocate other people do?
Certainly. Always document. Even if you think it might be nothing at the time, save it, tuck it away, write it down, put it in a special folder in your email. You know, it could help you later. It could help someone else later.
Possibly not a work email that all employers have access to.
Right.
Yeah. Just,
right.
I have a lot of drafts in my inbox. Fortunately, no one reads those except for, well, me, everybody who manages my inbox, let's be true. But, you know, you never know. I think that's something, and you tell me if I'm wrong, that you have to be prepared.
You do.
If you're gonna make the statement that this is happening, you have to be prepared. And I don't think you ever thought that you would be terminated from your job for saying this is a problem. What did you like? Well, what did you think was gonna? What was your thought? What was your ideal outcome there?
And hopefully this won't sound naive, I thought that my multiple complaints would lead to change. That the bad behavior would stop, that I would stop being picked on, and instead I was fired. So that was very pie in the sky, but
naive. I think it sounds hopeful. Wouldn't the great thing be to happen that you say like, hey, this is not comfortable for me. Can we work together? Can we work on working together?
And that's what I specified. I wanted that, and it didn't go that way. I will say something that I think everybody watching needs to know about, the 4 S's.
Yes.
If you see something, say something. This will help you personally too. It helped me build up my worth.
Yeah.
It helps you draw the line. If you see something, say something.
And that's but in any context, I think that first of all, we live in Iowa. I mean, not everybody that's watching lives in Iowa, so there's a little bit of Iowa nice.
The Iowa
there.
nice.
It's so real. It's so real that we just like smile and we kind of like we give everybody the benefit of the doubt. It's actually something I love about Iowans is that we believe that people are good intentioned. And while I think most of the time that is incredibly true, there are those times where we have to check ourselves and say, is my belief that everyone is trying to do good for me keeping me back? Like, am I not saying something because I'm hoping that it's for the best?
Right.
It's like sometimes
there's just slip.
Sometimes we just need action.
Right.
Just a little action. So,
yes, but that will help you draw the line. And just by simply saying, oh, I don't agree with you, that can be enough. Yeah. And remember how you're saying it and how the look on your face, because the tone and the visual can be just as powerful as the words that come out of the mouth.
Sometimes even more. I think about when I've been complimented. I can tell when that's a compliment that's made to truly build me up, or when it's a compliment that's like meant to take me down a little. It's different. You can feel it. And I feel like it's very clear, and you could write down the 2 sentences side by side, and they might say the exact same thing, and the facial expression and where they were looking or how they were looking at the time changes everything, which I think is actually why it's so hard to talk about.
Yes.
Because if you just document what was said, that's not the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
And we are so much a part of how we visually present our information.
Right.
That, I don't know, it's a hard thing to communicate.
It is.
So what are you doing now?
What I'm doing now
to get the message out?
I am speaking. In fact, this weekend I'm going to Minneapolis to speak to a large group conference. And I'm educating people on this issue, and I'm trying to get them to talk about it, to eliminate the shame, secrecy, and the stigma behind workplace harassment, because nobody should feel bad because they've experienced it, and they can stop it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that you've done this multiple times, but I think each time anytime we share a very personal story, there's that inherent little bit of risk and that a little bit of like, here, I'm giving it out again.
Yes.
And I really appreciate the fact that you gave it out and shared the story with us today.
Yes. I'd like to talk about this with everybody. So.
Yes. Well, if anybody wants to reach out specifically to Kirsten, we'll have a blog post happening later, so you can read a little bit more about her and then reach her if you want to talk about ending workplace harassment.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. It was great seeing you today. Bye.